pick 19. The
He
Tampa Bay Bucs.
will. That's a dollar bet. Guarantee you he'll go before the Bucs pick. So put that on the list.
Write it down, Debo. Christian Gonzalez, cornerback out of Oregon, goes before pick 19, Tampa Bay or otherwise. All right. Christian Gonzalez to me is Kyrie Elam. Kyrie Elam went at the bottom of the first round. So you sell me on why he's better than Kyrie Elam and deserves to go.
Because
high you think
he is more physical than your Florida Flash there. They
Fair
played
enough.
okay up in Buffalo, but this guy at least will come up and run support. He's a little bit more complete than when I saw Elam last year. They have to go corner. There's not going to be a quarterback there. They got a mess at quarterback right now. Well, they have a mess because they don't have one.
Yeah.
But they got to get that solved. But I don't think any of the four quarterbacks will fall that far. They do have Dean, Edwards, Murphy Bunting. They have a lot of guys coming up in free agency. They do need to get a corner, and I think the corner is pretty thick. I can't. It's too hard right now to start separating them, but there's 5 or 6 corners that could potentially go in the first round or first and top of the second round. I think that'll sort itself out as we go through this pre-draft process. But I think Gonzalez would be an excellent value pick there if he fell that far, which he won't do. But if I was Jason Light, I'd be high-fiving up and down if I got Gonzalez at where you got him going at 9.
So do you want to say who your CB1 is, or is it too early in the process for that?
I think I like him. I like Porter.
Yeah.
I like Witherspoon. I just think it's right now, everybody has them in these clusters or these bunches that are kind of like, okay, once we get through this process, let's see how they start separating themselves. Is it interview? Is it some of the athletic numbers that we do? Is it anything medical? Do we dig anything extra up from a character standpoint that may put a little nick in the armor, which I think all these kids are good kids. But it'll be interesting how these guys end up sorting themselves out as we go through this pre-draft process. And the ones that I love to sort down are if any of these prospects decide not to do anything at the combine and they are healthy. But that's a whole nother discussion.
That's Will Levis going in the 7th round. You heard it here first from Rick Spielman. Although, Rick, you did mention this at the Senior Bowl, and this is something we'll do post-combine, so Debo, make a note in case I forget. We're going to do a little clusters podcast where Rick wants to cluster all these guys together and then make the quarterbacks group into smaller groups based on size and measurables and go from there. We won't get a chance to interview them other than when we talk to them on the set, but that'll be the next step in the evolution of the Rick Spielman experiment 2023 draft podcast version. But I want to ask you about Christian Gonzalez. Is there anything else? Oh, here's what I want to ask you. So when you were sitting in the room and you were preparing for the draft as general manager, and I would imagine you would sit there for a couple hours and you would go through the top cornerbacks. And I would imagine, like you do with some of your guys that I've seen you witness in person, you would fall in love with a guy, and then you would see another guy and fall in love with that guy. How are you able to sort out? Is this sort of the clustering conversation? You have to be able to take a step back and see what the big picture looks like? Or is it like, I love the way that Joey Porter Jr., I love his physicality. He's more physical than Christian Gonzalez. So he gets, he in my mind, and we know that you're not the ultimate, you're making a decision as a group, but in your mind, maybe he gets a foot ahead of Christian.
Yeah, I think he's another, one of the top corners in this draft. And what we used to do is everybody has their the way they grade. They like certain things. Some guys like physicality. Some guys fall in love with athleticism. Everybody has their ways that they grade players. So that's why we put them in the clusters. These 5 guys are probably going to go in the top of the draft. And then we would sit there and group study them. Why did you have him number 1? Why did you have him number 1? Why did I have this other guy number 1? And then we'd bring the coaches in and have them group study with us. And then it comes down to, okay, we like this guy X better because what we're going to ask the corner to do in our scheme, this guy is going to be able to do it. Where I understand the value and this guy played good, but he might not be an ideal scheme fit. So that's why we would take this guy ahead of this guy, not discrediting them either as football players, but you always try to marry up guys that were close together then that's when the coaches became a big part of our process. Tell me out of these guys, which guy do you think is best fit for us? And then we kind of shuffle the deck a little bit at the end there after those cluster studies and which guy would fit best for our scheme.
That's why you come to With the First Pick podcast to hear Rick give us some insights that no one else can give you.